Hello. Hello. This evening I'm going to read you a story about a dragon. And we all know that dragons can come in forms that are just as varied as human beings. Some are nice and some are nasty. And this is a story about how to find ways to deal with a nasty dragon. So here we go with The Hungry Dragon. Once upon a time, there were 3 handsome young kings. They were brothers who lived together in a castle by the sea. The oldest was called Harvey, King of Clacton. The next brother was named Taylor, King of Jaywick. And the youngest brother was Findlay. He was king of a small kingdom of Wolseley. King Findlay liked animals, and he had a herd of hairy Highland cows. The 2 older brothers had trained in swordplay at the court of King Arthur and had been knighted by the High King himself. This was so they could protect the people of their kingdoms from danger. They were kind and everybody loved them. Folk often sung songs about their daring deeds. Mostly, King Harvey and King Taylor looked so fierce that robbers and monsters just ran away. One day, the 3 kings were walking along the beach. The older brothers had their swords and shields with them to practice fighting. They did this most days just for fun. King Findlay was riding on his favourite Highland cow called Hamish. His dog Bailey was running alongside behind them. And all of a sudden, Hamish started to moo loudly. Bailey began to bark. It sounded like a warning, and they were looking at the sky. "Uh-oh," called Findlay to his brothers. "Up there." Harvey and Taylor stopped fighting and stared where Findlay was pointing. In the distance, a fierce green dragon with angry red eyes was flying down from the clouds towards them. "Quick, Findlay," said Harvey, "ride back to the castle and warn everyone to stay inside." Taylor nodded. "We will tackle this dragon," he said. "We'll bash him, we'll smash him, we'll make mincemeat of him." King Findlay galloped away on Hamish, with Bailey barking at his side. The dragon swooped down to the sands where the brave knights waited. They were not afraid of his huge claws reaching out to snatch them, or his long sharp teeth that snapped close to their heads. King Taylor stabbed at the dragon's scaly chest, while King Harvey jumped the spiny, whipping tail to stab his legs. But it was the fiendish dragon's fiery breath that drove them back to the castle. Their shields barely protected them. As they slammed the castle door, the kings could hear the wicked dragon roaring his demands. "I want princesses to eat. Give me 1 princess every Tuesday, or I will burn down your whole kingdom with my fiery breath." With that, the dragon flew away. The 3 kings summoned their trusted advisors, Peter the fisherman and Stephanie the cook. These 2 were also secretly a wizard and a witch. They helped the kings in many ways. "Well," said King Harvey, "what are we going to do about this dragon?" "I'll fight him," shouted King Taylor angrily. "I'll get my longest spear and run him through." "Unfortunately, your Majesty," said Peter the fisherman, the dragon can fly up out of reach. King Finlay looked worried. "Uh-oh," he said, "that dragon's coming back on Tuesday." "What about our girl cousins? They are all princesses." King Harvey frowned. "Finlay, I don't think that our girl cousins would enjoy being eaten." They all thought about that for a minute. "I've got an idea." King Taylor jumped up. "We'll trick him. I could disguise myself as a princess, so the dragon would come close enough to fight." "There is still the problem of the fiery breath, my Lord King," said Stephanie the cook. "But you have hit upon the answer. A trick, perhaps, will defeat this fearsome beast." "What kind of trick?" demanded King Harvey. "Well," said Stephanie, "do you remember the village children making guys for bonfire night?" "I remember," Taylor said. "They were pretend people, like scarecrows, but more floppy." King Harvey looked thoughtful. "You mean we could make a pretend princess for the dragon to eat? Won't that just make him angry when he finds it's a fake?" "Ah, but that isn't the whole of the trick, Lord King," smiled Stephanie. "If we fill it up with things that give him a tummy ache, maybe the dragon won't fancy eating princesses anymore." "Let's do it," decided King Harvey, standing up. "We'll work together to fool the evil dragon. We are going to make a truly horrible princess." Making a fake princess was an enormous task. Everybody did their bit. First, King Harvey donated a pair of his old pyjamas to make the body and the legs. King Taylor gave his socks and gloves to be the hands and feet. Then King Finlay brought Stephanie the cook his own pillow from his bed to make the head of the princess. Stephanie worked away with her needle and thread to sew the pieces together. Peter the fisherman came in with a bundle of old newspapers to stuff the arms and legs and body. The three kings had fun tearing and crumpling the paper to squeeze into the pyjama bottoms. King Harvey picked up the fake princess and danced around with her while the others sang and laughed. "It's time to get serious, your majesties," said Peter the fisherman. "What can we put inside that will make the dragon sick?" "Well," said Stephanie, "I have mouldy vegetable peelings and some sour fruit. That should give him a tummy ache." "Yuck," said Finlay. "I've got a bucket of fish guts. Will they help?" said Peter. Finlay screwed his nose up. "Even more yuck," he said. King Taylor offered to fetch some dead crabs and shellfish from the beach. "There's nothing stinkier," he said. "Yuck," said Finlay. King Taylor laughed. "We will have to call her the Yuck Princess." He chuckled. "What yucky thing will you put in, Finlay?" "Nobody likes eating hair," said King Finlay. "I'll brush Bailey and all my Highland cows to get their itchy hair. Yuck." "Oh, that'll make the dragon squirm," said his brother. Suddenly, King Harvey had a thought. A dragon's tummy must be tough to breathe out flames. "Peter, do you still have a box of rusty nails in your shed?" "Yes, that's a great idea, your majesty. I also have some magic fireworks left from the display I conjured up for bonfire night. They'll give the dragon a nasty surprise when he eats them." They took turns to squash the nasty stuff into the open back of the fake princess. When Stephanie finished sewing it together, it was lumpy and smelly. Yuck, said Finley. Harvey and Taylor shook their heads. Not like our pretty girl cousins at all, is she? Time for me to work my magic, said Stephanie the cook. With her wand and some sparkling fairy dust, the clever witch turned an old curtain into a royal ball gown of silver and gold. Some strands of yellow wool became long plaits of blonde hair topped with a jewelled crown. The Yuck Princess suddenly seemed to have lovely eyes, rosy cheeks, and a pretty smile. She'll fool the dragon all right, laughed King Harvey. But King Taylor looked glum. He'll know it's a trick, he said. She's still stinky. Ugh, really disgusting. Pooh, said Finley, holding his nose. Stephanie sighed. I got a big bottle of perfume for my birthday. We can spray it over her to hide the smell. When the bottle of perfume was empty, the Yuck Princess did smell of flowers instead of fish guts. King Harvey noticed a tear on Stephanie's cheek and kindly promised to buy her some new perfume. Early on Tuesday morning, the three young kings helped Peter the fisherman to tie the Yuck Princess to the castle washing line. She blew back and forth, as if she were dancing. Peter had used his magic to conjure up a device that made strange wailing and moaning sounds when the wind blew through it. The Yuck Princess seemed even more alive. That's what our girl cousins sound like if they don't get their own way, said King Harvey. Everyone stood on the castle tower to watch for the dragon. Suddenly, Bailey started barking. Look, said King Taylor, red eyes glowing in the clouds. The dragon's eyes flamed greedily as he swooped down out of the sky. Once around the castle tower he flew, roaring and snapping his teeth. That's a fine-looking princess you have brought me. I shall expect one just as tasty next week. He roared triumphantly from above them. Then he folded his wings to dive down and swallow the princess in one gulp, washing line and all. Everybody standing on the tower held their breath. Would their trick really work? The dragon was flying happily back up into the sky. And then he burped. A rocket exploded out of his mouth. Uh-oh, said Finley with a giggle. The dragon was so surprised he stopped flying for a moment. Then he burped again. Dozens of rockets and Roman candles and sparklers fizzed and whooshed in a tornado of colourful sparks every time he opened his mouth. Then he doubled up in a howl of pain. The long, green, scaly body curled and twisted in the air as the dragon fought against the terrible tummy ache. He moaned and roared and burped fireworks again. Everybody on the castle tower clapped and cheered. The dragon squirmed. They heard him groan, "I'll never eat another princess." Finally, he did such a great belly flop into the sea that the castle tower was splashed with water. I'm not coming back here ever again, rumbled the dragon as the tide swept him away. Good riddance, said King Harvey, shaking his fist. I still wish we could have fought the dragon off, said King Tailor. You fought him with your cleverness, Peter the fisherman told him. Stephanie the cook nodded wisely. Using your brains is not just the best way, it's usually more fun. King Finlay laughed. They were the best fireworks. And they all lived happily ever after, with lots of magical adventures. Thank you for listening to my story. Good night.